Sorry, my so space closed for some reason, but we have some questions from Facebook, so we'll take those whilst we wait for space to come back. Facebook. The first question from Daniel Entry. Section 36 allows the authority to create any other categories of licenses, and Section 101 allows regulations to define, expand, and modify what counts as business activity. Why should the scope of who needs a license be expandable after law is passed? That's the first question. Second question from Facebook, JT. What is the value proposition attached to this licensing and registration regime? I haven't heard any benefits locally and globally for these papers to be acquired. Okay. That's back to the first one. Okay, first one. Yes. The licensing and registration regime. Okay. And the third question from Frank Kweku Hardman. How do we prevent businesses that provide critical information services to the government from passing these licensing costs onto the everyday Ghanaian? Then from He Is Ben. Many stakeholders have expressed concern about NITA's capacity to take on a regulatory role, given that its primary mandate as a development agency over the past 18 years haven't always yielded the outcomes the industry hoped for. What steps is the ministry taking to ensure NITA is adequately equipped technically, operationally, and institutionally to carry out effective and credible oversight of the sector? So that's all we have from Facebook for now. Okay.
Thank you very much. Daniel Entry speaks about Section 36 and Section, I think, 106 about what can be done by the agency. When Parliament, normally, and again, let me just put this in the frame of what it is for lawmaking. There's a certain diction that is used when laws are made. So at times you will see that the law is made, but then some extra powers are reserved so that you don't, because take for example, the cost of a legislative review is enormous. So we passed the bill today, and let's assume that the bill just focuses on AI. 5 years down the road, there's a new emerging technology. It means we have to go back to Parliament again and start the whole process to go and do an amendment. But normally you would leave what we call residual powers for the oversight agency, most times the minister responsible, to be able to make some of those amendments. However, because that power is in a legislation by Parliament, it is subsidiary legislation. It is subservient to the Constitution. And the Constitution in Article 296 says that anyone in whom such discretionary power is vested cannot use it in an arbitrary, capricious, or malicious manner. So, yes, such powers are reserved in the drafting of the legislation so that for even administrative changes, you don't have to keep going back to Parliament for each one of them. You can do that either through an LI or by a ministerial directive, but that ministerial directive is guided by Article 296 of the Constitution. JT asks the benefits of the licensing regime. Huge benefit. Huge benefit. As a minister, we're doing some work to expand the Ghana.gov platform. And that's really what opened my eyes to the plethora of different standards and protocols in our government ecosystem. A service provider is offering a service to one ministry, another one is offering a service to another ministry. They're all doing their own things in their silos. And then it comes to a place where government needs those two ministries to interoperate, and both systems cannot speak to each other. So for us as government, and when I say government, don't forget that anything government spends is your taxes. So if we spend it in a manner that is not efficient, it deprives you of other social goods that same tax will be put to. And I'll give you a typical example. There's one of those examples, and it's something that's work in progress. You are aware that the DVLA is working towards rolling out new number plates. Those new number plates are RFID readable. The DVLA is under the Ministry of Transport. So the Ministry of Transport is supervising the DVLA to get a service provider to provide them RFID enabled number plate. Now, you are aware also that government has indicated its intention to bring back tolls at a certain point in time, but not in the manner in which it was, automated. Now, that will mean that the toll booths, which will sit as property of the Ghana Highways Authority, which is under a different ministry, the Ministry of Roads and Highways, must have RFID readers to read the number plates when they get to the toll booth. Now, Ghana Highways Authority is also going to do its own procurement under the Ministry of Roads and Highways of cameras to read the number plates. Now, the person whose number plate is read will have to make that payment via a digital platform to a central pool. It will go to a mobile money wallet or a banking wallet, which is supervised both by the NCA and the Bank of Ghana. Two different ministries supervise those two agencies: the Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Communication. So the synchronization of the RFID number plates to a mobile money wallet to a SIM card is another integration that has to be looked at. Then you also have exempt numbers that don't pay taxes, that won't pay toll. For example, diplomatic corps. And the diplomatic corps number plates are issued by the foreign ministry. So exemptions on the system have to be created for a certain crop of numbers that can be readable by the RFID camera to exempt and not bill an associated number or mobile money wallet. Then you have foreign number plates who come in through the border, and that's dealt with by immigrations and customs, who will be giving stickers. This is the number of ministries that are connected to just one operation. Now imagine all of these ministries doing their own without a central technology agency building the entire life cycle with what the protocols are for interoperability, so that each of the ministries would do, but the standards would have been set by somebody. And for those of you who work in corporate world, you cannot have an HR manager wake up and just go and buy his own software, buy his own laptops. Accounts people do their own thing. Everybody submits it to the CTO. The CTO is responsible for ensuring that the entire ICT backbone of the company works. This ministry is the CTO of the government. And so all our systems must be interoperable, and the agency within the ministry that does that or will do that for us is NITA. So that's what the benefits are. The benefits are huge, and when you operate in that space, knowing that you are certified, if you don't have the certification, you cannot bid for government jobs. It's the same way today you can't bid for a government job without SNIT. You don't have a tax clearance, can you bid for a government job? No. So there are benefits. Frank asked, how do we prevent CIIs from passing on the cost? I think that may be respectfully a stretch. Okay. If I use my brother in the room who offers services to financial institutions, and we ask him to pay 20,000 Ghana cedis for the whole year for registration, his renewal is about what, 11,000, 10,000 or something. It's not that is nothing compared to what he's making from offering services to a CII. And that service is to a CII or a government agency. Even if he decides to embed that cost, it is to the CII. It's not going to be to a new private customer. So again, I think that may be a bit of an overstretch in my estimation. It is Ben is asking of NITA's capacity to do its regulatory function. It is Ben. Sorry, and that's the name. Before they will say that the minister referred to somebody as it. That one too, they'll come and drag me for that one. Please, that's the person's name. He says his name is It is Ben. It is Ben. NITA's core function, the premise of your question is actually flawed. NITA's core function is not operational. If you read Act 771, NITA's core function is to be a regulator. So what we are doing with this review is actually to take the load NITA has carried for 18 years off their back so that NITA can become a proper regulator. But again, just to talk on the benefits of that, again, this is international best practice. There is no service provider to the Department of Defense in the US or any US government agency that is not licensed and certified and cleared. In some instances, you actually even need clearance from national security. I hope you understand what I'm talking about. So we cannot say that because we are offering a service, let's just, no. You are getting access, you are managing critical information infrastructure. We need to know who is that is having that level of access to government data. So I think that this is what it is. NITA is actually going to take off properly now, because the burden that they've carried as an operator is going to be taken off their back, and then we have a limited liability company run that service, and then NITA will be a regulator. And I believe that NITA, and look, the NITA guys, we have some of the finest engineers at NITA. The problem is the training they have, the exposure they have. Private sector, you've been poaching my guys, because we don't pay them half as much as we should pay them. And that's why we want to make sure that as a regulator, they carry out their proper regulatory function and they remunerate their staff in the right manner so that we can retain the right sets of competency. So when a NITA regulator stands up and is coming to your building, like the way our parents were afraid of tankers, because they know that they are coming to make sure that you are doing it pe. In the digital world, we cannot have ifs and buts, even though you can have those in your algorithms. but you must, your service delivery, your SLAs all have uptimes of 99.9%, which some are 99.7. Okay, but that sounds like a radio station. But I think that it's important that we have a certain standard regime that is deployed across the whole of government. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to X and return to the room because they are ready. So Hubert.
Continue to ask my question, but before I do that, I'll use a few seconds to make a point. I really commend the minister and the NITA for this whole interactive session and actually inviting stakeholders to make their inputs. But I think publishing an archaic or old version of the bill on NITA's official website and then inviting opinions and comments on that, and then turning around to say that that's actually archaic and there's a latest version is a bit unfortunate, because if you posted the latest version, I think all these debates and confusions and everything would have been avoided. I actually had 13 questions, but I realized
Hubert, please, we'll take just one.
Answered by the minister.
So
right?
Just give us one and then send us the rest. Just type the rest out. We'll pick them up and respond to you.
Yes, perfectly understood. I'm just trying to make a point that based on the archaic version of the bill, I had 13 questions, but the
Okay.
minister has answered 12 of them, which means
Okay.
that
Okay.
the latest version is actually more progressive than the archaic version. And if that was actually published on NITA's official website, maybe you wouldn't even be here to begin with.
Understood.
My question is, my 13th question, which has not been answered by the minister, is actually section 68 and 69 of the NITA bill, the archaic one, which means that probably been resolved, is that the Director General of NITA has the powers to appoint inspectors who can actually enter into any premises and seize and arrest and do all kinds of things without a search warrant or an arrest warrant, which I think, is a bit unfair and unconstitutional. So I hope the minister is able to tell us that the latest version or the latest drafts actually deals with this kind of overreach and human rights breaches. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Hubert. We're going to Nana Boateng.
Yes, I think, yes, so good evening, Honorable Minister, and NITA leadership, and everyone here. So I stand with Hubert. I have the same questions that he asked, because if the updated bill cannot be circulated until it goes to cabinet and made publicly available, then we can't really make any comments on it, because we all came here because of the zero document. So I stand with Hubert. I don't really have any question.
Okay.
So we'll wait for the updated draft.
Thank you, Nana Boateng. Stefan.
Thank you.
Stefan. After Stefan, we have Fixed Bits, and then lastly, Datsun. Please have your question ready. Question. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much.
Stefan, please go ahead.
Okay, I was saying that thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak. As with what my colleagues have said before, many of these discussions that we've had online would not have occurred if, one, we had simply been told that the version that was out there was no longer what was under consideration. However, what we want to understand is that, is the minister saying that in this new version of the bill, private institutions are completely out of it? The reason I ask that is there are 5 substantive subsections of the current bill proposal that refer to either taxing the private industry on gross revenue or regulating both private enterprise and private professionals. If the minister is saying that this is archaic, is he committing and guaranteeing to us that these things will not make it into the final bill? Because these are the issues we have. So in order for us to say, okay, we understand this, we need to know if he's guaranteeing us that he's not going to be putting those in the bill so that we understand the safety. The reason is there are some things that have been said that we need to correct. He's mentioned things like we are operating outside, the industry just operates sort of without any certification. And one of the examples that was given was like academics, accountants, marketers, etc. However, that fully ignores the fact that ICT or IT as an industry is an extremely broad industry made up of sub-professionals. And within such sub-professions, they all have their own standardizations and certifications. For example, if someone wants to do networking, they have to go get certificates in networking. Nobody is going to hire you to come do networking for them unless you have a CCNA at the very least, unless they are interning you. So these are things that we need to bear in mind, that the private industry already has ways within which it regulates itself, especially in those sub-professions. But what makes our industry unique and special is how broad we are and how much we cover in terms of where we apply. It goes from individuals all the way to huge telcos and multinational companies. But finally, I just want to say, would we get that commitment from the minister that we are safe from this, which is quite egregious proposal, and these would not make it into the final bill? Thank you very
Okay,
much.
Stefan, thank you. Fixed bit. Fix your question.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Honorable Minister, for making time for us to hear from us our questions, our concerns. So I think what my colleague said, and this is not the final bill, and we're mostly concerned about the licensing of products, and many other things. But it seems from the minister's comments, these are not the actual bill, and this will not enter into the actual bill. So, like considering how the examples in terms of the certification, what the minister talked about, every technical body, every professional body, it's not licensed and certified by the government. If you use example like the chartered accountant, use like the example.
Please, can we get to the question?
Architecture. If you also go to the nursing, they are regulated by themselves.
Please give us the question.
So my question is related to cybersecurity. Cybersecurity, does that also apply to cybersecurity? Is the government only regulating public sector, or is also is private sector also part? Because if private sector is part, I have requested for the process and the standards, and up to now I've not received any standards and process they follow. So is the cybersecurity also following the standard of only regulating people offering public services to the government?
Okay, fix
So
it. We get your question. Thank you. That's a dropped off from Mark Jordan. Then we'll be done with X and we'll return to the room. When we come to the room, I think I saw Salom's hand up. Any others, kindly raise your hand so we can note.
Is there any question coming up? All right, so let's have the question.
Olele, please, let's hear your question.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I wanted to, first, we clearly understand that the draft that we've all been reacting to wasn't the final draft. But for me, my takeaway here is the press releases that came from NITA, and even, the minister's response to some of the things that were raised, it did not suggest or did not give the posture the minister has given us today that, this draft is not the final draft. Especially about the licensing conversation and services that needed to be rendered to governments who fall under that and all of that. So I'm just worried. I'm just worried and surprised that the releases, the 3 or 4 page releases from NITA and the minister did not suggest that this draft is not the final draft. We are getting to hear it or hear about it today. So if we can get an assurance that when the final draft is done, we can equally have access to it and read it as well and raise concerns like some of my colleagues have raised, then we know that, okay, we are on the same page. Because if we have to assume, clearly it looks like a lot of assumptions have been drawn. So if you have to assume that this is what is going to be, then we have a problem. So moving forward, if we can have the final draft, and funny enough, the final draft was discovered. It wasn't actually publicly available. It was discovered by
your point is very well
who wanted to dig deep into the conversation. And of course, it's actually one of the 14 drafts that also have other problems that we also want to raise the ministry and the regulators' attention to. So if we can have the final, thank you. Assurance, then I think we have something to work with in the future. Thank you.
Mark Jordan, the last comment from X. Mark Jordan.
Good afternoon, and good afternoon to colleagues, Mr. Minister. My question to you is actually on whether would there be any broader engagement sessions with startups, developers, security professionals, society organization, and people working in the ecosystem before the bill is laid before Parliament. And how will stakeholders' feedback be used in the final draft of the bill? Because it looks like we are seeing a lot of things on the hindsight, and this is not really the kind of ecosystem we are trying to build. Therefore, we would like to know, when is that going to happen? And also, is it possible to have all the bills published on the NITA website, so that at least we can have a free-for-all look through it and actually provide feedback? Because in the look of things, that's not what is happening. Look like things have been done
Thank
under
you
the
very much,
carpet,
Mark
and we
Jordan.
are
I
just
think
seeing things on the
your
side at the
question's been
moment.
asked.
Thank
We've
you.
gotten the sense of it. Ladies and gentlemen, let me urge people who are following us, especially because I'm listening to the comments that have come especially from X. I know we've done a lot of work in making data cheap and accessible. People should try and use it to do a lot more research. Let me state this as forcefully as possible. Nobody discovered the bill anywhere. Anybody who makes that claim, it's a lie. You can't call it any other thing. It's a lie. In September 2025, the Ministry of Communication published all the 15 drafts. So if, whether it is Hubert or Stefan, someone said they are now seeing the bill and we are now putting it out, Olele claims that they just discovered it. Please, what have you been doing? You are late to the ball. We published this in September. We asked for feedback. We gave a deadline for feedback. In fact, when we published, we gave 2 weeks. Then I asked the ministry to put out an extension that even took it beyond Christmas into January. We gave almost 4 months for feedback. In those 4 months, people were not paying attention. We got inputs from stakeholders, and since January, we've had stakeholder engagement on the back of that. If you have now come to the ball, you join, it's like joining a watch queue. You don't come and say because you came late, they should come and Hadia should go and cook the watch again. Watching the you've come to join the queue. When it's your turn, you will buy your own. We have done enough stakeholder consultation. There is nowhere in the world where you would have stakeholder consultation ad infinitum without any end. Stakeholder consultation comes to an end at a certain place. And let's be clear. The bills that you see on the NITA website were not just published yesterday or today. They were published in September last year. So you've had enough time to make your input. But like I said, the door is not shut. Wait and see what is laid before Parliament. If you have any inputs there, you submit them to Parliament. The ministry will subject itself to Parliament and the oversight of Parliament, because we as a ministry also get oversight from Parliament. I've dealt extensively with the issue of publishing the draft that I am sending to Cabinet. And I've said that is not possible, because that will be me breaching my oath. It's as though I'm putting a Cabinet memo in the public domain. I cannot do that. So, but I say to you, we've taken on board all the issues. Hubert asked a specific question about the inspectors that the DG appoint. The DG would have the power to appoint inspectors, just like the same way Standards Authority last week, they appointed their own inspectors and went and inspected places and shut them down. That's the same way the DG will do it. However, it will be done in accordance with law. A warrant will be obtained from the courts before any such action is taken. So yes, the DG will reserve those powers to enforce his regulatory action, but it will be done in conformity with our regulatory and the legal regime we have in Ghana. But let me repeat, Hubert, we did not publish an old legislation. At the time we published in September, it was fresh. And we gave 2 extensions for stakeholder input. And stakeholders did make their input. Now, Stefan spoke about the different standards and how IT professionals are special and different. Yes, we are special, but we're not different. It is, if you understand how other regimes work, and let me use the Ghana Institute of Engineers, for example. Does Stefan know how many different fields of engineering we have? So then should we have a Ghana Institute of Mechanical Engineers, a Ghana Institute of Civil Engineers, a Ghana Institute of, because each of those engineers, even agric engineering, we have agric engineers who are soil and water engineers. That's what I did. Then we have agronomic, agric mechanization engineers. So even within one field of engineering, you have multiple phases. When you take chemical engineers, they have multiple phases. When you go to tech and you study electrical electronic, like Kevo, Dr. Makevo did, he was my mate in KNUST. We're both in College of Engineering together. You cannot assume that all engineers, all electronic engineers and electrical engineers are the same. Yet we are able to have a Ghana Institute of Engineers. So please, let's not behave as though ICT professionals, we drop from Mars and we are special. No. The accreditation and standardization will remain irrespective of which specialization you have or the other. Because you see, else then you say that what people are asking us to have is a digital Wild West. Let everybody roam free and do what they want to do. Well, sorry, that's why regulators exist. And like I said, if we look at the regime, I said the Ghana Institute of ICT Professional should look at doing, like the CIMA, like the IPPR and co. Those things are voluntarily joined. However, there is benefit in joining, because then, take for example today, electricians, per the building code, any contractor doing any building of a certain standard or working for government, all your laborers, your electricians, your masons, they must all be MVTI certified. Masons and electricians, they must all have MVTI to do a certain kind of work in Ghana today, in the civil engineering field. So let's not paint a picture that what we are trying to do is so distant and is going to create. No, it won't. It would bring standardization and clarity to our field where we work. Fixbit asks whether government is also dealing with cybersecurity like this. Fitbit, please go and read the cybersecurity law. The draft was also put out in September. If in May you are asking me about it, that means you haven't read the bill. But again, that one too has gone through. The cybersecurity one is one of the ones we are sending to cabinet, hopefully by end of this week. And there are clear delineations on how, already in the current cybersecurity law 1038, Act 1038, you've got various tiers of providers, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and what they can do. If you are not a tier 1 cybersecurity firm, you cannot provide services to a CII. And as minister, I have authorized fines for even government agencies, because the Director General of Cybersecurity brought requests for authorization to fine government agencies. And I said, proceed. Because there were government agencies we had designated as CIIs who went and took services from tier 3 operators. And that's in breach of the law. So whether you are a government agency or a private agency, if you breach the law is no respecter of who your owner is. Whether your owner is the government of Ghana or Barnabas Nilaye, we don't care, we'll find you. So long as you breach the law, you will be fined. So then, Mark Jordan asked whether there were going to be broader consultations. I'm sure Parliament will open the room for that. And so, Mark Jordan, I'm sure you'll be able to take advantage of the parliamentary consultations. From the ministry, our consultation phase is done. Thank you.
So we'll just the room. Let's make it brief. Okay, I already identified you. Selom, then Pope. Just in case you forgot, see Derek. then Nehemiah, Priscilla, and Akosia Tech in Ghana. Yes. So we'll start with Salom.
Good afternoon, Honorable Minister and everybody. Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. My name is Salom Brantier. I think that there are a few things that we need to note. That the ICT industry is one where if there is a lot of overregulation, it tends to create an environment that, as much as the road to, you want to create a well-paved road with good intentions, you might end up putting too many stumbling blocks in the way of many organizations that are specialized in actually delivering a service to spend half of their time doing compliance activity. So that is very, very key for me as one of the areas that we need to look at. If we want to have 15 or 13 different laws on this, there would be a point, or a critical inflection point where people have to spend so much time trying to comply with so many different directives that the core mandate of what they need to do is lost. I think one of the areas we need to look at very carefully also is the fact that if NITA is going to be doing all of these licensing, then it means that there has to be some kind of white paper that determines, for example, what the criteria or what the main criterion is, or the passing criterion is to get the licensing to be able to work for any government institution, so that people are clear about what needs to be done, and it is not used as a point of exclusion to ensure that people are deliberately failed. It might not be in your regime, that others are used. This licensing thing is used as a point to exclude people who could have otherwise qualified to provide certain services for certain that a white paper needs to be done. If there is an examination criteria, it needs to be published by NITA to ensure that that is done. Finally, I believe that Ghanaian ICT companies would also want to spread across the African region, especially when we have the AFCTFA and all of that. If we decide that we are locking this down, others could also have reciprocal laws to lock us out. And in the ICT industry, we are looking at borderless deployment, so that if I come up with an innovation in Ghana, I should be able to gain from that innovation in any other country. What are the assurances that this would not make us also excluded in other markets with the excuse that we even have laws like that in this country?
Honorable Minister, thank you. Because you mentioned my name, I will not direct the arrow back to you. First, to say also that we commend this whole setup. I think this has been useful. Just that I do not understand why you didn't do this on Saturday, because if you did this on Saturday, we'll be making money by now. But I just have a few things to say. I mean, everybody has gone around the table. I think you've tackled what I probably would say 60% of the heat that was associated with this whole engagement, which is the whole idea of people being private people, just being in their homes, being in their garage, facing licenses, and then the steep license figures that have been flowing around the social media and the rest. I just wanted to just tackle a few things. I mean, I appreciate the process of the transparency and everything, but I commend you because I've been around for a while and I don't usually see it this way. What I just wanted to say was that because there's a document 4.0 and 5.0, I'm here a kick document on X. The challenge for a lot of people have been that there's a gap that has been created, and when gaps are created, misinformation takes the stage. That's how come yesterday government passed e-levy, and this morning government stopped passing e-levy. That's the whole thing about misinformation. So I appreciate the whole concept, but I just feel like if there was a way that the process could handhold the public. So the bills were there. I saw them as early as October last year, started flagging it for people to look at it. And I mean, if we could handhold the people through the process where, as and when the comments keep coming, the consultation processes went through towards December and the rest, these inputs were even flagged before finally what looks like your final draft. We don't know what they would look like, but before you go to Parliament, we can tackle all of those rules that enable that you can go to Cabinet with something that the public hasn't seen. that would have been useful. So right now it's like you are way ahead of us. We are all behind the Wachi queue, and that's where a lot of the arguments and the rants and brouhaha has been about. The final point for me, I'll just talk about two things, which is what Selon was trying to deal with. The whole idea of too many regulators. The bill is useful. I think it helps sanitize the space. Nobody's against regulation. Everybody's against over-regulation of innovation, and that's what the concerns have been. Too many regulators in a space. A fintech has to deal with central bank, data protection, NITA. Okay, there's another one, cybersecurity, and then suddenly, before you know, you have so many regulators that you have to deal with. So regulatory fatigue, regulatory arbitrage, regulatory confusion, and all of those things. That's one of the major issues that we need to tackle. So that, I mean, even for cost of doing business, so that if I have to start paying things to different regulators, it all fits into what my final cost is going to look like. Then the final point before they take the microphone from me is I'm glad to know that at least that 1% on top line revenue is off. There's one there as well that nobody has mentioned, which is fines. Honorable Minister, I know no regulator wants to just fine anybody, but if I have to find people to pay salary, I'll fine. So if we can please look at some of the lines there, I think that would be useful. Thank you.
Thank you. Nehemiah, I know you're next, but Akosia and Priscilla are down here. So let me just then I come up.
Okay. Hello, everybody. My name is Priscilla. I'm the CEO of Redwood Technologies. We are health tech. Of Redwood Technologies, we are health tech based here. Okay. So I noticed that during your submission, you went through the various certification for what the licensing should be. However, there was no clear-cut segmentation for what will qualify as a consultant, a practitioner, or a technician. So when we now bring that into emerging technology, especially now with Gen AI and ML essentially taking the lead, how then would these certifications be applied for the license for such individuals, especially within the startup spaces? Okay. We understand that some of these licenses apply specifically to the government institutions. However, even within the AI, the Gen AI and the ML, we've not even hit the stratus yet. So if we're now asking for certain licenses, how then do we now essentially come back and say, okay, well, there's a new addendum here, you have to come back and then re-license ourselves? Do we essentially price ourselves out of the market after we've done our initial licensing?
I'll stand up because I'm all the way back here. Hi, I'm Akosia Annabelle, founder of Tech in Ghana, and I've got to say that the convening of industry and government and public sector is like a dream come true to me. So it's great to be here, and thank you, Minister. So I'm just going to take this from a slightly different angle. I think it's obvious that there's no ill intention from government towards industry. It's obvious that industry are not against, strong digital regulation. But over the past week, the narratives online haven't not just been local, right? It's also been like an international conversation, maybe not publicly, but it's something that goes out to global tech ecosystems, foreign direct investors, and all the others from a macro level. So thinking about the next 13 or so bills that are coming out, I think how can we avoid false narratives, right, from being escalated, and how do we protect Ghana's reputation globally for those of us who are trying to position us as a strong ecosystem globally? How do we avoid that whilst we wash our laundry, basically? So I would say that, similar to what Derek was saying, or alluding to what Derek was saying about closing like that gap, that big gap, if there's a way in which conveners like Tech in Ghana or others can help or support or step in, just wanted to say that we are here to do that. And there's people like Ethel that keep us together in the meantime, but if there are ways in which we could, then I just wanted to make that point and let you know that we are there for that. Okay.
Last one from Nehemiah.
Thank you very much. To be fair to the minister and the ministry, these bills have been out there for a while, and some of us have been involved in the process. He talked about Barbara. We've engaged there, and if you are part of a process, at certain instances, you get a document of the update to review and see what has been done. And for those of us who are part of groupings like Tech Connect and IIPB, EDH, and all, we get some of these updates. But these things are also put on the ministry's website, on NITA website. I think sometimes we don't go looking. If you're interested in something, you probably would want to look around and see what is happening, and that gives us an opportunity to engage And I'm not trying to say the ministry is perfect, but I think we have to be fair to them in terms of some of the effort that they've done. My question to the minister will have to do with penal sanctions. If we can throw more light on the current state of that in the bill, we'll be happy. So we don't end up in jail at any point in time.
Thank you.
Because she's a lady, let's take one question.
Where's the most updated bill? And then the ministry saying, but we've shared it with you for 6 months. When I've seen this done in other countries, it's not just putting something on the ministry website, it's also animations, it's influencers, it's conveners, it's making sure that there's a lot of intentional attention to make sure that people have access to the information. Because truth be told, I first heard about this bill and then had to go back and trace and see everything that had been happening for the past 6 months. But I heard about it earlier this week because of a casual post that somebody made on a WhatsApp group, not through intentional discovery. And then I traced back and saw, as you mentioned here, that it's been around for a while. People have been talking about it. But it took me 3 hours to find all of the different pieces of information. But it should have been the case that if I went to your Twitter page, I would have seen everything there. If I went to the website, I would have been directed. So I think everyone has the right intentions, but I do think that from a kind of stakeholder engagement point of view, we could do a little bit better, because not everyone is super sophisticated and not everyone is going to have that 3 hours to be able to sort of scan and fully appreciate all the work that you all have done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for those. I'll start with that. I think that we'll take that as feedback on maybe doing a bit more PR. I'm one of the most active government officials on social media. In fact, I get accused of being too active and of putting too much information. It's true. They're saying people on X. They say that I'm talking too much. You are doing too much. So when we also don't talk, then we're being told we're not talking enough. So it gives me the feeling of the man and his son on the donkey. But we take it as feedback. We'll see what more communication we can do. You try to put out, people say, oh, we are not interested in this, just do it. And then, then they say we didn't see it, but we'll take it as feedback and see how we'll work on it. Now, Solomon and Derek spoke about overregulation. Let's be pretty clear. In fact, I can't see, not even Meta or Google will be susceptible to all 15 legislations. It's impossible. Because some of the legislation deals with the reform of Ghana Meteo Agency. So I don't see how there's any one company. Salom, you're not listening to me. You're talking in the background. Then you go and write something else on X. I'm responding directly to your question. And you are busy chatting with another guy. Not even a lady. No. Salom is my friend. So, Salom, pay attention. Someone should write names of noisemakers. If he's talking again, write it. But there is no way any tech firm, like I said, not even the biggest tech firms, will be affected by the duplicity or multiplicity of laws that we're doing. Because, look, we're doing new legislation for Ghana Meteo. And people don't understand how big this ministry is and the number of agencies under the ministry. There are 11 different agencies. The meteorological agency is under us. Okay, so we're doing a review of their legislation. So that's one of the 15 I'm talking about. Data harmonization, for example, is not necessarily targeted large. In fact, it's not targeted at the private sector. It's for government. The private sector, that's a new legislation, because what that does is it mandates every data processor in the government ecosystem to connect to a central hub, so that when you need information, you don't have to go chasing each of the 48 data regulators we have in the country. you can make a request to a central repository, and because there are API calls from all 48 to that central repository, we can give you all the information you need in one go. But that's one of the 15. It's supposed to facilitate the work you do. So it won't be over-regulation of you, even though it counts as the 15. Postal and courier services, for example, is a new legislation we are doing, because in their case, they're looking to add the logistics bit of it. So there are multiple legislation, but they are not all they're all tech enabled, but they are not necessarily all ICT. Do you get it? We are not bringing any new legislation outside of what exists today. Today, in this ministry, if you're a tech player, you know you have to interface with NITA, data protection, cybersecurity. If you are a telecom operator or you are in the radio broadcasting space, NTA gets involved. We're not introducing any new bureaucracy. It's those existing legislation that we are only doing what? Reviewing, because some of the legislation are 18 years, 23 years. That's all we are doing. So there's no new, the new legislations that are coming in are still going to be under the same bureaucracy. So emerging tech, for example, and many of you have asked the question, what's the ministry's position on AI? What's the regulatory space for AI? That's what the emerging tech bill does. It deals with that. That's going to be implemented by NITA. Then you have the innovation and startup bill. What are you doing for startups? What are you doing for innovators? That's also going to be run by the Ghana digital companies, which already exist. So you realize that even though it appears it's a multiplicity of legislation, we're actually enforcing and making it easier. And don't forget, in my earlier presentation, I don't know if you had come in then, I spoke about the digital economy overarching umbrella law that will spell out all the synergies and make it easy. Once you pick it, it's like a one-stop shop. It shows you everything that you do. We can't do that now until you are done with all the legislation you are doing. Then you put all of that together in a tied-up document. Do you understand me? So I get the sense that it may appear like, hey, 15 laws, over-regulation. No. We're actually trying to see, and Estelle will bear me out. When I met them, when I met the 4 law firms that are working on this, and all the 11 agencies, I said to them, what I am doing as minister, as one underlying motive, facilitate ease of doing business and break down bureaucracies. That's what I said to them. So we do not by any stretch want to bring in new bureaucracies, even with the AI strategy launch. Ask them. They came to me with the ministry prepared a document, policy document with a number of bureaucracies. I scrapped it. From 3 bureaucracies, I scrapped it down to 1 and said that 1 should be able to do everything the 3 were going to do. There was sound logic behind the 3, but I thought that why have 3 things if you can have 1 agency that will have 3 divisions? So I deal with one, and then it takes care of everything. So trust me, we want to do what you are asking for. That's actually, our minds are in the same direction. And like you said, I can boldly say that it is for the first time under the Mahama administration that any Ghanaian tech business can boldly say that the government held your hand and took you to another African country. It's never happened before. It's happening for the first time under President Mahama. We took 12 businesses as part of 12 tech CEOs, Ghanaian tech CEOs, as part of the president's delegation, purposely to have a meeting in Zambia. In 3 days, we signed 60 million. I was on an official assignment in Geneva. The president of Zambia wanted a Ghanaian tech business. The president asked me, leave what you were doing at the ITU, fly from Geneva to Ethiopia, Lusaka, and take this business so that they know that the government of Ghana is backing that business to go into that country. So we are all for expanding Ghanaian tech businesses into the sub-region. And so we will not do anything that makes us, we will not be xenophobic. No. Trust me, we will not be digitally xenophobic. However, we also will not be overly open. Because what I don't want is for the tech community to now rise up in arms and say, even the maintenance and construction of websites, our foreign companies have taken it. we need to provide a certain niche that our Ghanaian tech businesses that we want to take out must flourish in. Because I can't take you out if you've not established competence in your country. What story are we going to sell? The businesses I took out, I took them on the back of the work they have done here in Ghana. So we will grow you here, but we can only grow you when we also create protections for you. Because trust me, you may have a startup, but your service you are offering, a big tech company from Denmark that has huge capital behind it, would kick you out of the ballpark if I said you should all compete on an even playing field. So as minister, we would look at all of those and try to, we've created the niche areas where we'll protect our Ghanaian businesses to grow. You understand me? So it's a fine balance we are walking between growing our businesses, but also protecting you well enough to grow. Now, Pope said, why did I not do this on Saturday? If I did all of this on Saturday, what would I have done today? But listen, and Olele also asked that question about the response on Saturday from NITA that I shared, that NITA posted. The response responded to the questions that were asked. People said fees were being charged on the back of a future legislation. The response picked every claim and responded to that. So I can't dance calypso to reggae. So we responded to the question that was put out. And then after doing that response, we decided that, okay, look, now, like my lady friend here said, we will own the communication of this. And that's why we're having this platform. I could have as well sat down and just said, well, all they've said is not true. I know that they are talking about, they say, what is it, a cake? They're talking about an old version. When we go to parliament, they will see. I could have just kept quiet. I mean, and not minded anybody. But we decided, let's own the narrative. Let's situate the conversation in the right context. But that goes to Akosua Bill's point. You see, and this is a heartfelt comment I'm going to make to our tech ecosystem. When the goat, and don't forget that ABA Fuseni was my ranking member, so I learned a number of proverbs from him. When the goat thought that it was defacing the wall, it didn't know it was hurting his backside. It was pooping all over the wall and scratching. But by the time he got home, the whole place was red. When the tech ecosystem thinks that they are attacking Sam George and we are dragging Sam George, not me you're doing. It's all of us. It's Ghana. Akosua sits in the UK, does a lot of good work in the UK. I've seen what she does. I've met her on international platforms. So if you take misinformation, facts that are not true, and decide to run with them because there is an agenda, let's drag him. You're not dragging me. We are destroying our international image, our own image. Because if you have not taken the time to appreciate the thing, but you just go for clickbait and rage bait, oh, I'll just throw the tweet and everybody hashtag kill the bill. Which bill are you killing? Version 1.0 or version 5.0? The cake one is already dead, so you are killing a dead thing. You understand me? So, and that's why I'm saying that. And listen, I've always said this. People say, oh, some clapbacks. Listen, I respond to at least every week. I respond to at least 100 tweets on X. Most times you will see one or two that would trend. Ask yourself why the 98 did not trend. If you come and ask me a sensible question, I'll give you a sensible answer. If you come and insult me, I'll give you a sensible answer, but I remind you that I'm a Ghana boy. You get it? So, I mean, and yeah, I've seen Pope's Ghana anthem several times on his post as well. So, the way you frame your question determines the kind of answer you get. Most times we ignore them. But you see, the point needs to be made that decorum is not a one-way street. It's not a one-way street. And today I'm minister. I wasn't minister 4 years ago, and I won't be minister for the rest of my life. And so we must all respect each other, because before I became minister, I had a life I lived. So people should not also get carried away and think that, oh, he's minister, and so you will just throw anything at the person. Because again, at times I'll go and look at the person's profile. I just shake my head. I say, hey, Sam George, why am I data here for? But it's all good. Now, Priscilla asked about new sectors that will come up. For example, new areas. That was one of the questions I answered earlier on with residual powers that are left in the legislation. So you cannot necessarily think and predict all future developments relative to the lifespan. Administrative function, NITA. So tomorrow, if there's a new consultancy field that opens, okay, they will then pass that fee to that license, because we can't just own and write what the fees are. Anything you see that is being charged, we first and foremost went to the Ministry of Finance, had a rigorous defense of it there. Most times finance will slash it. Sometimes they themselves will even raise it. Then from finance, you now go to the subsidiary legislation committee in parliament. Again, another defense. There, finance may have raised something. You go there, they will slash it. Finance may have slashed something. You go there and the MPs will tell you, no, this thing you are doing, we think it should be more expensive. Raise the price. So there are two layers to the pricing structure, outside of what even the ministry does on its own. And I'm taking my time to explain this because I believe that many people don't even understand the work that goes into this whole fees and charges thing. So it's not an arbitrary thing. If we charge a fee that Parliament has not approved, it's illegal. We'll get sanctioned. I can get censured by Parliament. So we can't do that. Anything we charge, anything you see on the website was approved by Ministry of Finance and then by Parliament before we are able to charge it. And of course, like you said, on the false narratives bit, I think that collectively we all need to begin to own up and speak up. Okay? So, for example, Derek, and I'm calling the people I know personally, so don't think that I'm putting them on the spot. You knew we had posted these bills since, for example, September, October. People were commenting about it, painting a picture as though this is the bill they just discovered, like Mongo Park or Christopher Columbus. But you could have easily also, in your commentary on this, whilst you took us on for whatever you may feel we had not done right, also positioned the conversation to say, look, as for this one, this is what it is. Nehemiah, you too. You should have helped us to rebuild the walls. You know, because so my plea here is that in dealing with the communication, it can't just be Sam George. It can't just be even the ministry. For those of you who are players, who know what the fact is, also speak up. Position the conversation. You see, when we are able to situate what the issues are and separate the issues from the tangentials, it allows us to have a proper, productive conversation. I hope you get what I'm saying. And if I come and someone is doing a tangential and I'm trying to even explain to the person, oh, because you're a minister. But if an industry player who knows what the fact is situates that, the worst that will happen is when I retweet it, they'll say, I've paid you. That's the latest. But bottom line is, sorry? But manima people. You know, and so on the penal sanctions, Nehemiah, the penal sanctions are things that again we've looked at, and it's still work in progress. Because again, one of the things I believe ought to be done, which the lawyers are working on before we go to cabinet with, is if you look at the licensing, they are tiered. The licensing is tiered. So long as you have a tiered approach to licensing, you would also have a tiered approach to sanctions. Because I think that's one of the things I've seen also out there, that I use sanctioning a startup like the same way you are sanctioning a big tech company. Absolutely not possible. Because if you look at anything that has a tiered regulatory framework, also has a tiered sanction. The sanctions match the licensing and the regulatory framework. You understand me? So be rest assured. And I'm confident that the industry will be proud and happy with what cabinet will approve. And even if you are not, you'll still have the opportunity to engage with whatever we put out when cabinet, when we put it before parliament. But again, please continue to engage us. The ministry runs an open door policy. We are always available. There are several people who did not do a post. They came into my DM and asked me for clarity on the matter. There are people who also did a post and tagged me and asked for clarity. And I did provide same. You know, but like I keep saying, let's have constructive engagement. That for me is the most important thing. Because like I told you, my first business was a tech business. Business is still there. Okay? When I leave this chair and this seat, and maybe I leave parliament one day, it's one of the areas I still hope to make earnings from. Absolutely. Absolutely. I'll be regulated at that time. Even today, my business will still be regulated. But the bottom line for me is that I want to be able to live here knowing that I contributed to the growth of the ecosystem and the industry. And so I don't do what I do with the team that I have here from a place of malice or a place of ill will. It's simply to make sure that we leave an ecosystem that is better placed. Trust me, 3 years ago, this wouldn't have happened. You know. So it shows you the progress we've made. It shows you where we are. But it would still get better. I'm not going to sit here and say that we are perfect at what we are doing. We'll make mistakes. And when we do, don't drag us, correct us. When you have suggestions, don't start agenda. Send it to us and let's engage on them. So I want to thank all of you for taking time out. Like Derek said, you'd have been making money somewhere else. But yeah, all of you would have been making money somewhere else. But it's important we've done this because this is critical for the sustained making of money that you want to do. But the ministry remains open to work with you. We'll continue to collaborate with you. And if at any point in time you need to get in touch with us, the handles are there. You know how to reach us, either electronically or in person. Please feel free to come here and let's work together. I want to thank you so much and say that we'll continue to do this, as I always say, for God and country. Unfortunately, when I speak, maybe I'll end with my emojis, but thank you so much for your time. To those who joined us on Facebook and X, thank you so much. We deeply appreciate your inputs. For those who have questions that may still not have been answered, please type them in the thread. The team is going to extract all the questions, and we would reach out to you directly with responses to those questions. Because I want to believe that even though this may have been very exhaustive, there may still be 1 or 2 questions people may have out there that we didn't deal with. The team is going to pick any questions that are put in the thread, and we'll work with it. Thank you very much. My name remains Sam George. I've done this for God and country. Lion emoji, Ghana flag emoji. Thank you. Hashtag she won she. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.